Well, we welcome everybody tonight to our last and final broadcast. Hello. Let's see. We had Trina join, and then we had Becky here. So we've got Josh. Thank you for being here. Anyway, we have a couple of things I'd like to do. It's a simple night tonight. I want to have a quick spiritual thought, and the other thing I wanted to add were two things. One is to take the time to talk about the workplace and society issues that our chapter brings up, or our reading brings up for our last week. And then the last thing would be I'd like to kind of take a little time and what did I learn in the class, kind of discussion like that. And again, talk about how these things apply, how we can use them at work or church or home or whatever the case might be. So those two things. Is that a hand raised? Or
yes.
Trying to shield yourself from light, Mel?
No. Is anybody else getting the same thing repeated that you're saying?
No.
I'm not.
Do you have two windows open of the same thing?
No.
My wife tells me that all the time, that I'm repeating myself. So I'm used to getting that feedback.
Okay, maybe I did. Maybe it's fixed. Okay, thanks.
Is that better?
Yeah, I think I might have had two windows.
Okay. Thanks, Melanie. All right. And again, we'll send this out to the rest of the class and go from there. So thank you for everybody coming. So a spiritual thought. My wife Raylene had last night. She showed me, and it was just posted. And I would encourage you to find it. If I have time, I'll get it for everybody. It's a video put out by the Tabernacle Choir, and someone add comments if they've seen this. It was just put up, I think, yesterday or the day before, and it's the choir with one of their songs, and I'd forgotten which one it was, but of a prisoner being released from prison, and that walk out of his jail cell, past fellow prisoners, other prison guards wishing him well, and then outside the prison to his family. And it is very touching, as you would expect it would be. But it reminded me of a couple of things. In our ward and our stake, we have a prison ministry. Our stake is one of three stakes that supports a prison southeast of our area. It's a fairly large state prison. And we have another jail that we have one of our members of our ward that supports. And we've had multiple experiences teaching and serving prisoners. The three that I can think of are, one is we have home teaching visits for the brethren that are in these prisons, most of which will never be released. Most of these prisoners are significantly incarcerated. And that's one. We have another one where one of the brothers had been teaching the youth every Thursday. He would drive that hour to the prison and teach the youth. Some were members, some were not. And then we had another one that worked with, I'm not going to call them death row individuals, but they were a pretty hardcore group. A lot of these people were LDS, a lot of them were not. But they had to make a request for these home teachers, and to a person, the reason this video came to mind for me is to a person, every one of these brothers either wept or came close with the experiences they had working with these prisoners. And without being overly corny, what their experiences were like were basically a consistent comment that said it was a front row seat watching the atonement at work. And I think as we look at Christmas and Christmas coming up, and this is the last time we'll meet, we look at the birth of our Savior and what that means. We look at all of his life and the healings and everything else, but his atonement and resurrection certainly are so key in our lives, both the enabling and the redemptive power of the atonement, the resurrection, and all aspects of Christ's life. But as we often get reminded, it started with his birth. Without his birth into this mortal world, into a world that he created, none of those things would have happened. So you can't put one necessarily in front of the other in importance, but Christmas is certainly a wonderful remembrance of Christ, his birth, and for a preparation for those 30 years of what his ministry was going to be and what the atonement and resurrection later came about. So I would encourage you to find that video. If I find that link, or maybe you guys, one of you guys can find it while we're on here and maybe share it in an email or something. But it was very touching, and it brought tears to my eyes, and maybe it was just the end of a long day, but it was one that I thought was very appropriate, and the choir and the video produced were very touching. So just a thought that I think that it's important as we think of Christmas and look at it in that light. And I hope all of you also have a great Christmas with your families, friends, neighbors, whoever that would be, whether it's a big group or a small group, travel, no travel, you name it. So one other personal thing for us is that I have a very close family. My parents are both still alive. My dad is not in good health. My mom is in fair health. And we meaning my brother, my sister, and myself, usually we do a lot of things as a family, but Christmas has never been one of those because we all split up and go our separate ways. And we decided this Christmas to all be together. There are not a large flock of us. There's 3 of us, and all 3 of us have 3 kids. So you can do the math on that, and we're looking forward to spending that time together, maybe for the last time as an entire family, maybe not, we'll see, but it's a time that I'm sure you guys cherish as well with family and friends. So I hope that's an appropriate spiritual thought for a moment or two. So, thank you. I put the group to sleep. You all look like you're sitting there very melancholy, and that was not my intent. So, and Linda, you have a great smile too. So
Thank you.
I've got to make sure I give equal time here because I told Holly that earlier, and I don't want to offend anybody. Okay. Well, I would like to take some time. I love this topic of the society issues in our workplace, and what I really want to do tonight is real examples of what you have in the workplace right now or have seen recently, and I'll add some things to that. That's everything from, I don't know, whatever it is that society has that's found its way into your workplace. And I'm going to be quiet and listen. I'm not sure we're going to come with answers for all of this because we probably don't have time. But let's talk about those things that are there and real and affecting us today.
I'll start with one. It wasn't my workplace because it was when I was in clinicals in nursing school. And when we came to one of our clinicals, we were starting a new clinical in a different location, so we had a different instructor. And when we arrived, it was evident that that instructor was high on something. I had not really ever witnessed anybody before, but other students recognized her condition. And so one of the students got on the phone and called our head instructor, who got to the hospital immediately and removed this other instructor, and then took us aside and talked to us about the appropriate way of how to handle these situations. And I guess in the medical field, it's quite frequent, apparently, that doctors and nurses and other medical staff abuse medications and other drugs and have easy access to it. And it was a very clear picture of that kind of a situation, of something coming into what the workplace would be.
I imagine, Becky, that would be not just the easy access, but lots of pressure in those roles to do things and long hours and those type of things. Am I correct?
Absolutely, and high stress.
Okay.
I know a lot of jobs have stress, but people's lives are depending on medical personnel, and at a time when everybody's budget is requiring everyone to work harder, faster, for less, with less, and do everything in less time, it's just crazy.
Yeah, very good. Thank you for that And I think one of the things that we have to look at in society in general, and this is not, trust me, this is not an LDS and non-LDS thing. Substance abuse, alcohol abuse, prescription drug abuse, which is a huge issue, where it's legal and you have a prescription and people get hooked on that, especially on painkillers. Those type of things are real, and people struggle with that. And some of the addictions can be real for life. Even through the power of the atonement and the person becoming clean chemically, sometimes those addictions stay. And it is very much an issue in the workplace, substance abuse. It's an issue in society, and it doesn't stop at the doors of any employer that I know of. It's real, and it's difficult. So thank you for starting us off with that, Becky. Next one. Now again, we could talk an hour on just that one alone, but I wanted to just try to get again, this is not meant to be a let's all get depressed because of things in the workplace, and I'm going to try to make it that way. Our job as HR people is to try to help people through those issues, and we'll take a few minutes of that at the end. So other things that are society that make their way into the workforce.
Can they be? I was say, do you want these to be personal stories or just other stories?
Whatever you want them to be, Kim.
Okay, go ahead, Melanie. Sorry.
Just going to say, in my office, we have several gay people. We have gay people who are married. We have people who have domestic partners. You know, definitely the traditional family is not necessarily the norm anymore in our office.
All right, and that's a significant issue. Do other people struggle on how to interact with them, or did they at the beginning, or do they still, from that perspective, Melanie?
You know, I don't think that it's, you know, I'm the one who probably has the issue with it. Keep in mind that I'm in Seattle, and so it's very footloose and fancy-free that way.
Okay.
I'm the one who has an issue. You know, when so-and-so comes up and, you know, is a female and she says, my wife, that just, it rubs me all kinds of wrong. But I just have to kind of smile. Yeah, I just have to kind of smile, and I can't say anything. I mean, I can't talk about it with my fellow coworkers because then I could get into trouble for not being sensitive.
Okay. All right. Okay. Very good. And by the way, that's everywhere. It's not just Seattle. We have a superintendent that's in the field that is she's a great superintendent. She openly talks about her wife. She fulfills the role of husband in her mind. It's different. It's difficult, but somehow our guys are trying to figure it out and do okay with that. At least I haven't had any complaints. So it is very much there. If you haven't been affected by it, you will. If you work for BYU Idaho, that's not even a guarantee it's going to not be there. But it's real, and it's all over the world, and it's probably more prevalent in places like Seattle, other places like that. But it's everywhere. It's here, and so you have those that are openly gay. You have men and women that are attracted to each other. You have partnerships. You have marriages. You have any non-traditional way you can look at it. You have you know, and then you have people that are in the process of asking for and having rights for benefits and other things like that, or that have changed and are going to change and continue to change. So
Yeah, and then we have.
Oh, go ahead.
Have one of the ladies at work who is married to her wife. They just adopted a child too, like a 7-year-old boy, and you just wonder, you know, from the HR perspective, you're not only dealing with how do you know, the benefits, how does it all fit in with the family, you know, who does the child really, I don't know, I guess the child belongs to both of them.
Well, all I'll tell you is this, is that the whole issue where the first presidency has clarified church membership and what that means with same-sex or partnerships and those type of things. That's a leadership for us as church members. The tricky part is how does that work in the workplace and society, where you have one foot as a member of the church and one foot as not. And so I don't know the answer to that. I know it's there, it's real, and it's going to just continue to be that way. Okay? All right? Excellent. Kim, you had one.
Oh, sure. The only thing I can think of is just a personal one. I met my husband at work. We were both CNAs, and we tried to keep our relationship quiet because we knew if our management found out, they would separate us. Well, that didn't last very long, and we got separated. He worked one side, and I worked another side, and we were fine with that. But when we started a new job, I worked with him one night, and the person that we were working with told our manager the next morning that he had caught us being inappropriate, which didn't happen, and just the fact that came to our management's attention, we weren't allowed to work together or anything like that, which was kind of hard because we drove to work together just because the drive was a while, and so it saved us gas money, and then I don't know, it just seemed to kind of work out. But when that our coworker told that, it kind of threw everything for a loop. So
Okay, very good. Where do more people, if you exclude church probably, in the world in general, where do more people interact with each other? Where do the most people interact with each other all the time?
In the workplace.
In the workplace. What Kim experienced is not inappropriate. Is not uncommon. And being a normal thing anymore, it's really one of those things that just is got to get okay with that, whatever that means. And sometimes that's okay with employers, sometimes it's not. So it's definitely one that's there. Okay? All right, and again, I would love to talk about each one of these, but the whole point is just to bring them out tonight. So, all right, others. It looks like we've got a couple of mic issues. It's that people coming and going here, it looks like. Okay. That background left, so.
I have one.
Josh, did you have one you wanted to add?
Yeah, for sure. So one of the things that I found most interesting on this past week's lesson was that divorce is second only, like along stress level, it's only second to death of a loved one. And so I thought that was really interesting. And it's I've never had to deal with anything like that, within the workplace, but I can definitely see and cope with someone that would have to go through something like that. Okay. It's just really interesting to I guess discover that.
And divorce being close to 50% of all marriages, it happens. It happens in the workplace. You can't keep that out. It's there. It's real. Sometimes even the nasty divorces make their way into the workplace. Most people are pretty good about keeping that out, but sometimes you can't. And coming back to Kim's example, what happens in that? And again, certainly not applying this to you, Kim. But when people that meet in the workplace don't get along any longer, whether it's a traditional family or it's a divorce or it's a same-sex attraction that doesn't have that anymore, it can get pretty interesting and pretty nasty fairly quickly. Okay, so that's a good point, Josh. Thank you for that.
No problem.
Okay, what else?
I have a team member that is gay, and he's just got married in June, and his wife is also gay, and they are worthy temple recommend holders, but they're both openly gay, and I think the disruptive part is that he talks a lot about it at work. And if someone doesn't know, he'll approach them and tell them, and kind of tell them his whole story. And as much as I love him, because I do, he's a good friend. The distracting part for me is that I don't go around talking about my sexuality, and I don't go around, telling people that I'm straight. And so I just think it's something that he should maybe be a little more discreet about is all. But
Okay.
good guy.
Excellent thought, Bridget. And again, there isn't enough time nor enough bandwidth to come up with all the answers to those things. But that's one that's both here and real. And you're talking about that in the employment of BYU Idaho, correct?
Yeah, they're both students. They're student workers, but they recognize that they have issues with this, and they still want an eternal family, and so they found each other, and they're great friends, and they married, and they plan to have children, but they openly acknowledge that they're gay, and they don't hide it, and they have same-sex attraction. So
Okay.
it's kind of an odd couple, but it works for them.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for sharing that. All right. Others?
I have one.
Okay.
It's something not that I've dealt with, just vicariously through my husband, because he has to deal with it at his work, and so I hear about it. But he has a coworker who often has to leave because his daughter is sick, and his wife is paid hourly, and he's on salary, and so they figure, well, he can just leave work because then they still get paid, and so it happens a little more often than it should, and so it kind of turned into a sticky thing. So family issues too, if you've got sick children or whatever.
And there are truly things in place to help people like this, but there is a limit to that, and I'm sure your husband and his coworkers are finding that out. Is that it's not as simple as just saying, hey, everybody gets to leave when things are there. Everybody has to have a responsibility to their employer. One of the things we talk about is that we get all the times guys talking about, well, I'm working too many hours, my wife isn't happy. I mean, this comes up a couple times a week, and most of the people I work with are men. And I ask them, what's your most important responsibility? And they say, taking care of my family. And I said, what's the most important way you can do that? And they think about it for a minute, and they go, well, I guess bringing home a good paycheck. And I said, if you don't stay and work the hours that you need, are you going to bring home a good paycheck? And I said, could that even jeopardize your job? And they look at me like, yeah, I guess I hadn't thought about that. And so we have lots of discussions. To Heather's comment is that, there's flexibility, and that is important, but you have to be careful whether you're managing those people or are the employee, that we make sure that there's things that are taken care of from the employer first. Because if you look back, President Hinckley had a lot of good topics on this. They were fairly brief in a lot of his remarks, but he had multiple times where he talked about making sure you honored and were an honorable employee for your employer, etc. And I also have one of our stake presidents. He does a really good job. He does this a lot. He prays when he says a prayer that we'll be good stewards of our employment. He uses words that may be a bit different with that, but that's a very big issue. And as pressures, thank you for that, Heather. I think as pressures are there to try to take care of family, whatever that looks like, you have to be careful of that. So that's a great comment. Let's do two more, and then we'll go on to the last thing and go from there.
To go along with that last thought, at my workplace, I work at an elementary school, and there was a paraeducator that worked there as a one-on-one with a little boy who needed extra help, and she, on a regular basis, had crises in her life, whether it was her grandparents passing away a week apart from each other, and each time she had to take bereavement leave, or there were just constantly reasons why she had to leave the school and take care of stuff. And it got to a point where the principal decided that she needed to see some actual documentation of these incidents because they were so very frequent. And a short time that same day later, the paraeducator came to the principal and gave her notice. I'm quitting, and I'm quitting now. So
Okay.
rather than provide that documentation, she decided to leave employment, which kind of tells me that she wasn't being honest in what she was doing.
Okay. All right. And there's a couple of things. Obviously, the issue of being gone. But Linda, the other part that is there is lots of people have difficulty being honest with their personal lives, or honest in anything in the workplace, and trying to cover up and hide mistakes and other things like that. So that's an excellent point that we could, again, spend an hour on talking about from that perspective. Thank you for sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
One more? Anybody we haven't heard from? Heard from everybody. Anybody else have one more that they'd like to share?
I can share one from our group discussion on Tuesday that Stephanie in Alaska shared with us. There's a high school there in Wasilla, Alaska, where she lives, and the principal was involved with a secretary, and when she wasn't sure what happened. The principal was married, the secretary was married, and not sure what precipitated the actual event, but the police showed up at the high school and arrested the principal. And so nobody knows if a student saw something or was involved in something, and with that, what would happen that would require the police to arrest him. But in our discussion, we talked about the ramifications of their relationship with other educators and other staff members, as well as the student body, and what they were or were not seeing or picking up on, and then the families too, both the families that were affected.
And that's very tragic, Becky, from that perspective. So and I know that those are difficult things to look at. So you also add workplace violence to this. There's all kinds of things like that. And I want to take a minute and get away from the issues, because the issues are there. Thank you all for sharing those. But, you know, what I want to leave the impression of, because if you take this and go, man, you know, I'm glad I ended the class on a high note, you know, we're all excited, and we walk out of here and we need to go get our antidepressant medications. But it's not that way. I think what the beauty of what this is one of the things the gospel teaches us, I'm going to bring that in front and center here, is in today's world of difficulties, of challenges, whatever they are probably more complex and more frequent than they've ever been. And I think if you look at this from a gospel sense and a human resource sense, we have a responsibility to help people work together, get along, and find common ground. And I think that those things, with all the challenges that we have, are still possible. And I really like where we are in this class, because we've had some tools given to us to try to make that better, make that easier, and it is possible. It does work. You know, the police don't come every time somebody does something wrong and haul somebody off. Lots of people figure things out on their own. They deal with people that they're not comfortable with. They work through challenges, and we make it work. And what I'd like to do is take just a minute. We've got a couple minutes left of, so how do I do that? What are some things I do that we've learned in this class that help me deal with the challenges that we just talked about? And there's many more. We didn't even come close to all of them. What do we do to try to make this work, either from a gospel perspective or from a human resource perspective?
Brother Bonnie, I think one thing is to make sure we refer them to the right resources that are available for them.
Okay, very good. And they may or may not have those, but if they're there, certainly you can do that. Okay, very good. Because HR people do have resources at their disposal. Okay, thanks, Heather. What else? This is your workplace. This is what's going on. The things we just talked about are alive and well there. How do you help people get through this?
I think it's important that people don't gossip about it in the workplace. They
Right.
keep things private.
Okay.
If you're in a position to know, you don't go
And
discussing it
Linda,
with other people.
you can always control that yourself. You may not be able to
Yeah.
control that with somebody else, but you can always do that. And one of the hallmarks of a good HR person is they're able to keep confidences.
Right.
You know, people ask me all the time, "Are you going to share this with somebody?" And I said, "Here's what I'm going to do," and I tell people, "Here's who I have to share this with, and here's who I'm not going to share this with," and most people are okay with that. So you have to be clear on what confidences you can keep and which confidences you can't keep.
Mm-hmm.
So very, very good comment, and I think at a minimum you don't contribute to the gossip. An HR person that contributes to the gossip chain is useless and is counterproductive and is just a liability to the organization. Again, that's just my opinion. So excellent thought. What else can we do in this world that we have to try to make it work, either use the tools we had in the class or what we've talked about tonight? Melanie, anything come to mind? I think you're muted, Melanie.
Okay, I think I'm good now. Sorry, I've got a touchy mouse pad. So we actually have an EAP at work where, you know,
Tell
it's a
us what
great resource.
Tell us what that is for those of us that may not know.
Oh, I can't remember what it stands for.
Employee Assistance Program?
Assistance Program, yeah, Employee Assistance Program. And it's actually handled by an outside company. And so what you do is you call the number and you tell them what you need. And we were able to get a referral for one of our kids to see a psychologist one time through the EAP. But, you know, with it's the end of the year, and so we've had to go through all the benefits, elections, and this and that, and they brought out that, you know, we have this EAP, and it is free for employees, and they're willing to do anything from, you know, finding you a referral to, you know what, they'll help you plan a party if you need it. You know,
Okay.
it was just such a wide variety of services that they do provide, and I don't know if employees who have that available take advantage of it.
Okay.
Because
And I would
they're there to relieve stress off of the employees.
Okay, very good. Almost every employer that offers an insurance company, while it may not be the party planning part of this, they will almost always have something that has behavioral health, psychological counseling, etc., as part of insurance. And some of that was made equal. One of the things that the Affordable Care Act did, that, again, there are many pieces that people don't always know about. It put mental health benefits on the same parity as physical health. So it used to be mental health benefits were far less. You'd get, you know, 2 visits a year or something like that, and now mental health is, for the most part, on parity with that. So that's a great point, a good thought that all of us can use. Okay, others?
So, you know, I have another story from work this week, and that, you know, it has to go all the way to HR, the issue that has come up. Last year at our holiday party, one of the employees, her guest, we called him Grabby Santa because he couldn't keep his hands off of, you know, even like the COO of the company got felt up at the party. And so,
He had an affection for the non-Santas?
yes, very much so. And so our holiday party is coming up again tomorrow, and he is on the guest list again to come.
It ought to be exciting.
And so you know, we have a really good relationship with our events coordinators. And I asked him, you know, so is Grabby Santa coming back this year? And she said, oh gosh, we still have to deal with that. And because I wasn't even the first one to ask if he was coming back. So, you know, clearly it's, you know, kind of more of an amusement thing on the part of people that didn't come in close contact with him. But anyway, it's going to the owner's executive assistant who then has to approach the head of HR, who has to decide how they're going to handle, Grabby Santa this year. Whether or not they're even going to allow him to come to the party, I don't know.
Right. Well, I don't know about that part, but as a fairly direct HR person, what I would say is that conversation needs to happen with that person. If you touch anyone, we'll escort you out of the room. It's
he
that
did.
simple.
Yeah, he got escorted out last year. So.
Okay. Well, and we'll do it quickly. You touch anyone, you're done.
Yeah.
But again, I don't mean to give answers, but that
No.
certainly makes life at the Christmas party exciting.
Oh, yes.
By the way, if Christmas parties involve alcohol in excess, there can be lots of inappropriate comments that may not be sexually related, but they could be just about, hey, my boss is a jerk, well, your boss is standing right next to you. Alcohol and holiday parties make for some pretty interesting times, and you have to be careful with those. It's a lot better if you don't have alcohol at your holiday party, but it happens all the time, including how you get people home, and if they drove themselves, how do you stop them from driving back? I mean, there's just a myriad of things that come out of this from an HR perspective.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's kind of the culture at work. That, oh, we're having a party, we need to, what kind of alcohol's being served? And this year, well, at past events, the options for us non-drinkers have been pretty much limited to water. And my husband, who is also, he works for the same company, he emailed our events coordinators and said, you know what, could you please provide Sprite this time around? And they said,
Or
sure,
something.
yeah, we'll put it down on the list. So, sometimes all it takes is just asking,
Right.
for other options. But yeah, it'll be a good time.
Well, send me an email on how it goes.
Sure.
All right.
I want to know too.
Yeah. Okay, send us all an email.
We all want to know what happens to Grabby Santa and the alcoholics at work.
All that good thing. So, all right, one or two more examples on what we can do with this as human resource people or as members of the church, knowing what we know about how we treat other people. Bridget, you've been quiet tonight. Tell me what you think the go forward is for this.
Well, I think in the reading, something helped me, like with my coworker that talks a lot about his same-sex attraction. He'll come and talk to me, and it's very distracting from my work because I turn into a mom and I start to counsel, and instead in the reading that we should try to stay away from that kind of thing. So that helped me to realize that I just need to, maybe not give advice, maybe just listen for a bit and then move on to my work. So.
Okay. And I think there's ways to be polite in declining conversations like that, where you can say, you know what, I appreciate you have a lot to say about this, but I'd really like to focus on my work right now. Again, there's ways and times to do that, and you have to do it in conjunction with your personality. But I think those were there. Go ahead.
One thing that seemed to work is I'd ask him, I'd say, oh, hey, I'm having this issue right now. And he's really smart, with the technical issues. So I'd say, hey, can you help me solve this problem? And then he'd start working with me instead of telling me his stories. So that's always helped.
Very good. Okay. All right. One more. Josh, do you have anything for us?
I think you guys have pretty much covered it.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll add one more thing, and I'll add that as our close for tonight, is that I think we have a responsibility as human resource professionals, and again, we've never shied away of bringing the gospel into this class, is I think that we've got multiple responsibilities here. I think you have a responsibility for helping people be treated fairly. I think you have a responsibility for keeping track and protecting the company's assets and allowing people to be themselves but not be themselves beyond what is appropriate. I think if I turn this to a gospel-centered thought, is that as an HR person, I don't believe you have anything in your toolkit besides treating your employees with respect, with dignity, with kindness, no matter how messed up their lives are, and they are messed up. There's a lot of people that have a lot of problems that go on, and that a lot of them end up on the doorstep of the HR person. So what I would say is that I think you have a responsibility to not judge. And again, we're commanded that in multiple ways, but I really realize that in my job a lot. People come up to me and say, "What about this? Did you hear about this guy?" and want to engage in gossip. And basically, I try my best not to, because I'm not in their shoes. They have multiple issues. And on a daily basis, I've got, one was in my office today, trying to work through child support. I've got an ex-wife that won't give me the Social Security numbers of my children to put them on insurance. Marriage issues, failed marriage issues. A person that I worked with for a lot of years just today came in and said that she and her partner had no longer split. And if you want to talk about complex, they still live in the same house. He moved into a back room. He is the babysitter to her children, and they still live in the same location. Okay, so it just goes on and on and on. But I think if we reserve our judgment, try to assist, protect the assets of the company, and do our best to try to be appropriate in our actions for members of our companies, I think we're in good shape. And I think that's, in the complex world that we live in, that what our Savior would have us do. Anyway, I would like to leave just a second. Any final comments at all? I know we wanted to talk about what we learned in class. I've got 5 minutes here by my clock. Any takers on that, on what we learned? So.
A lot.
Okay. Be specific, Linda.
Oh. I can't think of anything specifically at the moment.
Okay. Then we'll take a lot. How's that?
Okay, that's good.
We'll take that. Okay. What else that comes to the top of the list for everybody?
I always think, I will always remember what Elder Bednar said at the beginning of this class, that it's not the program, it's the people, and that applies with church and with a company. It's not the company, it's the people.
Okay. Very good, Becky. Thank you. Others?
I really.
Go ahead.
I really.
Bridget, then Heather.
Okay. I really liked how, in so many ways, treating others as a human resource person. If you can follow what the Savior did, follow his patterns and his types, with kindness and tact, and just to remember that they're real people and that they have feelings and they have heart, and apply that as a human resource person or manager. I don't know, that just was something that was really touching to me throughout the whole course.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Heather, go ahead. Oh, okay.
You see, in Miami, we can tell everything but the flow of the blow. This Lamansky has been making bigger buys every week. Now, I know he has been biting into someone's action.
I think you can delete him from our group.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. I'm not quite sure how that got there, but we'll deal with it.
Okay.
So, Heather.
My comment was just that I appreciated learning about the laws. I didn't understand all of the employment laws and the employment at will and just all of them. I didn't get it, and I still don't get some of them, to be fair. But, yeah, I like learning about that.
Okay. All right, thank you. All right. Others?
So as much as we dreaded the doohickeys, that was really a great learning experience, picking apart the company and coming up with solutions for all of the different programs or all of the different problems. And, while you may never encounter a company that has that many problems, being able to
You also may very well get one that has that many.
really.
Oh
I
dear.
thought that was pretty unusual. I know. But just to be able to problem solve and to try and think outside the box on, how are we gonna solve this?
Okay, very good. All right, and I would ask now, and this would be honest feedback. Most of you had fear and trembling and trepidation because of the groups at the beginning. Anybody, by a show of hands, did it turn out okay? Was it, no, it was awful? Kind of give me your reaction. And I know some of you are kind of the kind of the leaders in our class, so I don't know. What do you think? Did it turn out okay? All right.
I would say it did, Brother Bonnie. Just because, like, with me coming in a little bit late because I was switching up my schedule and like trying to add in the right class, I was still able to, get caught up to speed, and I was able to meet with my group each week, and I was able to learn the material. And so, yeah, I would say it's gone really well.
Okay. All right. So I'm not quite sure how to take the rest of that reaction, so I'll take it on face value. How's that? All right. Fair enough. Okay. Good feedback nonetheless. And if you have any specific feedback, make sure you include that in the end of course comments, or you may have already done that. So, well, let me end tonight, I guess, by saying I appreciate all of you. We've managed, minus the 1 week of technical difficulties, I think we've had this meeting every week that was appropriate. Again, we didn't have it over Thanksgiving. We won't have it next week. But it's been good to hear your opinions, hear your comments, hear here are the things that are appropriate to learn from, and I think we had some good progress and some good things getting better as students and learners. And I think the other part we tried to do, I think we did a pretty good job of bringing the gospel into this and how the Savior would have us lead and work with other people. So I hope that was beneficial for you. I've appreciated getting to know all of you. You guys that have attended regularly, and again, everybody, if they've watched the recording or if they've just attended here, I've appreciated you. But again, especially you guys that have come on a regular basis, I personally and professionally appreciate the fact that you've made the effort to be here. Thank you. And again, this kind of brings us to the end. Thank you guys for everything. Grades will be out before too long. And if you've got any questions as the semester unfolds and wraps up, then let me know. So any final comments from anybody?
Thank you for all that you've done for us. Appreciate what you've done for us.
Well, you're welcome, Linda, and I've tried to make it a fun and enjoyable class. So
You have. It's been challenging. It's been a nice balance of challenging and fun and making us stretch for things that, at least for me personally, I haven't done before with this Google Hangout stuff. So it's been really quite a good experience for me. Thank you.
Well, you're welcome, and I promised you we would stretch, and the part that feels good when you stretch is you kind of relax a little bit, and it's kind of like I did it, and all of you did, and you guys did a great job with that. Those that are here or those that are watching this on the recording, we made it. The groups worked, and from that perspective, there's just been I think some good things that we managed to get taken care of. So hopefully that is how we end up the week or the class, I guess, if you will. So thank you again. You guys have a great night. Any questions, and go from there. And we will talk to you all soon.
Okay.
Thank you, Brother Bonnie.
Okay. Good night.
Good night.
Good night. Merry Christmas to everybody.
Merry
Yeah,
Christmas.
thank you. Merry
Bye.
Christmas. Thank you, Becky.